Hello, and welcome to BC Foster Basics. My name is Benjamin Catharoon, the Coordinator of Programs and Services for the BC Foster Parents Association. As a caregiver, you have no doubt encountered countless instances where reference has been made to policy, and you likely have at least a rough understanding of what that means already. That it is, in essence, a set of rules and guidelines which dictate everything from payment to practice. In this video, we will be further explaining what policy is, how to navigate it to find the information that you need, and providing a brief summary of what policy documents in British Columbia are most important for foster caregivers to use as a reference. I'll say this up front. Understanding and navigating policy is both much easier and much more useful than you may expect. So, what is a policy? A policy is, in effect, an instruction, guideline, or statement of intent that tells you how a particular course of action should be carried out. Policy documents, such as the Chapter 8 Resource Work Policies, are then essentially a collection of these instructions which inform how a set of actions, in this case resource work, should be performed. For example, resource workers will refer to Chapter 8 in order to understand how much notice should be given for a changing placement, or how a prospective caregiver should be assessed. With this in mind, you can probably begin to see why being comfortable with reading these policy documents is so valuable. They aren't hard to access either. All it takes is a Google search of the name or subject to find them. To make the value of reading policy explicit, let me give you an example. Let's say that you are expecting a child or youth to leave your home for another placement or a return to family, and are wondering how much notice you will or should have been given about this. While you could reach out to your local support agency or BCFPA to ask about it, or inquire with your resource worker, it would save you time and effort to understand where this information can be found. Providing notice is part of the job of a resource worker, right? And we know now that resource work is governed by the policy document, Chapter 8 Resource Work Policies, which I mentioned earlier. The question then is how to find it within that document. This is likely the part of understanding policy that is the most daunting for those who are inexperienced. It's easy to think of policy documents as complicated, specialized resources that you would need some education to understand, but that's simply not the case. With the purpose of a policy document being to provide clear and concise direction that informs those conducting relevant work on how to do their jobs, it's an inherent aim of these documents to be easily understood and referenced. So before you write off the idea that you could make sense of these resources, hear me out. At the top of most MCFD fostering policy documents is an index. This index will include numbered sections with titles that clarify what subject they are addressing, followed by the subsections of that topic. If you hear a reference to Policy 8.19 in the context of a quality of care review, it's simply because the section of Chapter 8 policies that addresses a quality of care review is precisely that, the 19th section of Chapter 8, 8.19. There can also be other sections, such as appendices, listed in the index. In the case of our prior example regarding notice requirements for a placement change, this information would be found in Appendix C of the Chapter 8 Resource Work Policies document. If you read the index, this would be easy to ascertain, because one of its subsections is titled quite clearly, Notice Requirement Practices. Notably, this appendix is one of the most useful ones in the document, and also discusses payment rates alongside other valuable information. I'd suggest taking a look for yourself. Now, it may not always be the case that you know exactly where the information you're after could be found. Sometimes one or more documents, sections, or subsections might seem potentially relevant, and you'll need to do some reading to find out what you need. Being patient with the process is important, because reading any policy which is relevant to fostering is valuable, even if it's not what you were specifically looking for. So your time is never wasted in doing so. We've spoken so far only about the Resource Work Policies document, but there are several other documents which are important and relevant and may have information that you're looking for. Let's do a quick review of the main ones you should be aware of. Chapter 4, Out of Care Policies. This document discusses the guidelines, restrictions, and procedures associated with out-of-care caregivers. Do note that it is formatted differently from other MCFD policies due to the multiple types of out-of-care agreements it needs to address. Chapter 5, Child and Youth in Care Policies. This policy document discusses how service is provided to children and youth in care, including everything from supporting Indigenous cultural identity, to collaborating with foster caregivers, to preparing youth for adulthood. If your question pertains to the child in your care rather than your own services as a caregiver, this is your ideal starting point for research. Child, Family, and Community Services Act. Also known as the CFCSA, this is actually not a policy document. Rather, this act is a piece of legislation which broadly addresses many different aspects of the child welfare sector and is the foundation upon which individual policy documents are based. If you cannot find what you're looking for in one of the other documents, the CFCSA is your next best bet. It is written in brief fashion using legal language, but navigating it works in essentially the same way. You'll even find a helpful glossary of sector terms just below its index. With what we've discussed, you now have the basic knowledge and resources necessary to effectively navigate MCFD fostering policy documents and find the information that you need. While it may be a bit difficult or intimidating at first, it becomes much easier with practice and as your understanding of each document's scope increases. To get started, try this exercise so you can put your skills to the test. Let's say that you're considering a new placement and would like to know specifically what sorts of information should be shared with you beforehand. For this scenario, try to answer the following. Which section of Chapter 8 Resource Work Policies has this information? And for bonus points, what specific details of a child's daily care does policy say should be shared? You can find the answer in a pinned comment below this video to check your work. We hope this has been helpful, and thank you for watching BC Foster Basics. We'll see you again next time. To get in touch, you can call us at 1-800-663-9999.